500-year representation of what this may have looked like.
That's a coin, look!
It is a coin. All right, another coin.
Look at that!
As soon as Rick and Marty watched the final borehole footage, the entire control room fell silent. What appeared on the screen was far more than loose soil or another collapsed tunnel. Nearly 100 feet beneath Oak Island, the camera revealed what looked like a sealed chamber with remarkably straight, compact edges. At the same time, drilling instruments recorded a 30 to 40% resistivity difference and density readings up to 5 times higher than the surrounding ground. When engineers combined those measurements with the borehole data, one estimate stunned everyone: nearly $295 million. The camera showed a hollow cavity stretching roughly 20 to 25 feet across, while pressure sensors detected a stable air pocket inside, something extremely unusual at that depth. For Rick, this was unlike anything the team had seen in years of searching. After decades of failed excavations, hundreds of millions of dollars spent, and countless disappointments, this was the first discovery that seemed impossible to dismiss. But excitement quickly turned into caution. Digging between 100 and 130 feet carries a serious risk of collapse, and Oak Island's legendary flood tunnels could fill the entire chamber within minutes. Instead of rushing in, the team decided to verify every angle with multiple camera probes before attempting a full excavation. Because if this chamber was deliberately sealed, it raises one extraordinary possibility. Someone wanted whatever was inside to remain hidden forever. And that leads to the biggest question of all. If a single chamber could be worth $295 million, how vast and how valuable might the entire underground system really be? Before we uncover what the cameras revealed next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this Oak Island discovery could change everything we thought we knew about the world's greatest treasure mystery. Subscribe now, because Oak Island is no longer just a centuries-old mystery. What the team uncovered could be the first real clue to a hidden secret that some believe is worth billions. The moment Rick and Marty replayed the final borehole footage, an eerie silence settled over the control room. Even the constant hum of the equipment seemed to disappear. Everyone stared at the monitor, unsure of what they were seeing. At first, it looked like another ordinary underground void, the kind that had disappointed the team many times before. But within moments, it became obvious that this discovery was different. As the camera descended to nearly 90 to 100 feet below the surface, the underground layers suddenly changed. Loose rock and soil gave way to a smooth, compact formation. Seconds later, the camera revealed an open cavity. What caught everyone's attention wasn't the empty space itself, but the remarkably straight edges surrounding it. There were no random fractures or rough surfaces. The shape appeared unusually clean and organized, making it difficult to dismiss as a natural formation. The experts immediately compared the footage with the drilling data. Earlier scans had already revealed a 30 to 40% resistivity anomaly in this exact location, while density readings were nearly 4 times greater than those of the surrounding ground. Now, for the first time, the visual evidence seemed to match the scientific measurements. What had once been only a theory was beginning to look far more convincing. Rick couldn't take his eyes off the screen. Quietly, he admitted, "This could be exactly what we've been searching for." Marty remained silent, carefully studying every frame, every shadow, and every detail as the footage continued. Then the camera reached what looked like a solid barrier. It resembled a sealed surface, almost as though someone had intentionally closed off whatever lay beyond it. At that moment, everyone in the room realized they were looking at something far more significant than another drilling result. But an even bigger question remained. Where exactly had this structure been found? Because on Oak Island, location can change the entire story. The discovery came from a depth between 90 and 110 feet, an area long considered one of the island's most dangerous zones. Instead of digging a single large shaft, the team used a far more careful strategy. Several narrow boreholes were drilled from different positions, allowing engineers to examine the same target from multiple directions. Little by little, the underground layout began to emerge, almost like assembling the pieces of a hidden map. For years, this section had been largely avoided. The ground consisted of unstable clay mixed with fractured rock, while the legendary flood tunnel system posed a constant threat. Historical records describe several excavations that suddenly flooded after reaching similar depths, forcing crews to abandon their work. Because of those failures, most previous searches focused on shallower areas where the risks were lower. Rick and Marty chose a different approach because the latest scans kept pointing to the same location. Every survey detected unusual resistivity values and abnormal density readings within this narrow depth range. The pattern appeared too consistent to ignore. When identical signals started appearing from multiple boreholes, the team realized they were no longer looking at isolated anomalies. Everything pointed toward one specific underground target that had remained hidden for decades. Oak Island has always been surrounded by stories, legends, and speculation. This time, however, the excitement wasn't driven by old tales. It was driven by measurable data. The first clue came from resistivity testing, which showed differences of nearly 30 to 40% compared to the surrounding ground. In simple terms, something beneath the surface was behaving very differently from the natural geology around it. Such anomalies often suggest the presence of an underground void or an unusual structure. The next surprise came from density measurements. In several areas, the readings were 4 to 5 times higher than expected. Geological formations rarely display such dramatic changes over a small area. That left investigators considering two possibilities. Either a large concentration of dense material existed below, or the instruments were detecting a compact structure, unlike the surrounding rock. Then drilling provided another important clue. As the bit approached the target, both vibration and acoustic patterns changed noticeably. Resistance suddenly dropped, while echo-like signals increased, an effect commonly associated with drilling close to an open cavity rather than solid rock. Viewed individually, each reading might have been dismissed as an anomaly. Together, however, the resistivity changes, unusual density, and cavity signals formed a remarkably consistent pattern. The evidence suggested that whatever lay beneath was organized rather than random. Rick studied the data and quietly remarked, "If every one of these signals is leading us to the same place, we can't ignore it." Until that moment, the team had relied only on charts, graphs, and sensor readings. But everything changed when the borehole camera began transmitting live images. As it descended through the 90 to 110-foot zone, the first part of the journey looked completely ordinary. Layers of soil and broken rock filled the screen. Then, without warning, the view changed. The camera revealed what appeared to be a large underground cavity measuring roughly 20 to 25 feet across and an estimated 10 to 12 feet high. This wasn't a small crack or an isolated pocket. It looked like a substantial underground chamber, raising even more questions about what might still be hidden beyond the camera's view. What appeared to be a large underground chamber rather than a simple hollow pocket. The feature itself was impressive, but the real surprise was its shape. Instead of rough, jagged walls like those found in most natural cavities, the sides looked unusually straight and compact. According to the sensor readings, this section was 4 to 5 times denser than the surrounding ground. The experts in the control room immediately enlarged the footage and compared it with the earlier survey results. The same area had already produced a 30 to 40% resistivity anomaly. And now, the visual evidence appeared to support those readings. As the camera slowly advanced farther inside, its lights illuminated the interior walls, revealing a tightly packed surface that looked very different from ordinary soil or loose rock. For a brief moment, one section even appeared almost perfectly flat, giving the impression of a sealed barrier. Another unusual detail soon emerged. Pressure sensors indicated that the cavity contained a stable air pocket, meaning it wasn't completely flooded with water. Considering Oak Island's underground conditions, that alone was an unexpected finding. From that point on, the discussion shifted in a completely new direction. Was this simply an unusual geological formation? Or was it something constructed by human hands? The team began comparing the chamber with known natural cave systems. Most underground caves develop uneven walls, curved passages, and irregular shapes. This cavity, however, displayed surprising symmetry and sharply defined boundaries. If nature had created it, it would be an exceptionally rare formation. Rick continued staring at the monitor before quietly saying, "If these readings are accurate, we're looking at much more than a single empty space. This could be part of an entire underground network." Marty nodded before responding. "And if someone intentionally sealed it, then there had to be a reason." As the excitement settled, another question quickly took over the room. If the chamber really contained something valuable, what might it actually be worth? That was when the team began running a series of careful estimates based on measurements, engineering data, and historical comparisons rather than simple speculation. The first step was calculating the chamber's size. Using borehole mapping together with the camera footage, engineers estimated the cavity to be approximately 20 to 25 feet wide, 10 to 12 feet high, and at least 15 to 18 feet long. Altogether, that suggested an internal volume of roughly 3,000 to 4,500 cubic feet. If the space contained nothing, its value would be purely archaeological. But if even part of it held dense metallic material, the numbers could change dramatically. To explore that possibility, analysts performed a conservative calculation using the density of gold. Since solid gold filling an entire chamber would be highly unrealistic, they assumed that only about 20 to 25% of the space might contain high-density material. Even under that cautious scenario, the projected amount reached well over 100,000 ounces. Using an estimated market value of around $2,000 per ounce, the calculation produced a potential range of roughly $240 million to $280 million. After factoring in the strongest density readings and the possibility of nearby connected pockets, the projection climbed to nearly $295 million. The figure became even more remarkable when compared with previous discoveries on Oak Island. Over decades of exploration, recovered coins, artifacts, and traces of precious metals had been valued at only a few $1,000,000 altogether. In contrast, this single underground cavity was being estimated at almost $295 million, far exceeding the combined value of everything found before. For several long seconds, nobody in the control room spoke. The number represented far more than money. It suggested that if the readings proved accurate, Oak Island could be hiding something much larger than anyone had imagined. For Rick Lagina, this wasn't simply another exciting discovery. It represented years of persistence, disappointment, and determination, finally leading to something tangible. When the borehole footage first revealed what appeared to be a sealed chamber, the emotion on Rick's face reflected much more than excitement. It was the expression of someone who had devoted decades of his life to chasing a mystery that many believed would never be solved. His investment had never been measured only in dollars. It included years of field work, endless drilling campaigns, repeated setbacks, collapsed shafts, flooded excavations, and countless moments when success seemed impossible. Many times the evidence appeared promising, only to disappear before the team could confirm anything. There were moments when even experienced researchers questioned whether Oak Island held any significant secret at all. Yet, Rick never gave up. Now, with the camera revealing a structured cavity between 90 and 110 feet underground, and analysts estimating a possible value approaching $295 million, the discovery carried a meaning that went far beyond treasure. He remained silent for a moment before quietly saying, "This isn't about the money. It's proof that our search wasn't in vain." To Rick, Oak Island has always represented something greater than buried riches. It has been the pursuit of a lifelong dream, one that began in childhood and became a mission he refused to abandon. Every setback strengthened that determination instead of weakening it. Marty Lagina has always approached the mystery differently. Where Rick sees history and possibility, Marty sees engineering, budgets, and practical reality. As exciting as the discovery appeared, Marty immediately focused on the challenges ahead. Every excavation on Oak Island carries enormous financial costs, technical complications, and serious safety risks. The very first concern was the depth itself. The suspected structure lies between 100 and 110 feet underground, a depth long considered one of the most hazardous areas on Oak Island. According to engineers, the ground in this zone is made up of unstable clay, fractured rock, and remnants of old excavation shafts. A single mistake during digging could weaken the surrounding earth and trigger a collapse within minutes. But unstable ground isn't the only concern. The greater threat has always been the island's legendary flood tunnel system. For generations, excavators have reported sudden water surges whenever they reached deeper levels. Many researchers believe these underground channels may connect to the ocean hundreds of feet away, allowing seawater to rush into active excavation sites. If a direct opening into the newly discovered chamber is created without proper preparation, the entire cavity could flood, making whatever lies inside nearly impossible to recover. That is exactly how Marty viewed the situation. On one side was a possible discovery, valued at nearly $295 million. On the other was an excavation that could require tens of millions of dollars before anyone even knew what was actually hidden below. Individual deep boreholes can cost close to $500,000, while a full-scale recovery operation could easily reach $20 to $30 million. Even after spending that amount, success would still be far from guaranteed. Marty summed up the challenge perfectly. This isn't simply about digging, it's about managing risk. Because of that, the team rejected the idea of launching an immediate excavation. Instead, they developed a step-by-step investigation. Their first objective would be to gather as much information as possible using camera probes, structural analysis, and pressure testing before making any irreversible decisions. Yet another mystery continued to grow. If this really is a sealed chamber, who sealed it, and for what purpose? The latest footage only added to the intrigue. The walls appeared unusually compact, the edges remarkably straight, and several surfaces looked almost intentionally finished rather than naturally formed. When specialists enhanced the video, they noticed portions of the chamber where the material appeared compressed into layered sections instead of random deposits. Rather than loose earth settling over time, the surface resembled something deliberately packed into place. Historical records from previous Oak Island excavations make the discovery even more interesting. Early searchers frequently described wooden platforms and engineered layers appearing at intervals of roughly 10 feet, almost as though each level had been intentionally reinforced or sealed during construction. If those historical accounts are connected to what the team is seeing now, the similarities become difficult to ignore. That is where one of Oak Island's oldest theories returns. Many historians believe that anyone capable of creating such an elaborate underground system wasn't merely hiding valuables, they were protecting them. Different theories point toward pirates, the Knights Templar, wealthy merchants, or colonial-era treasure caches. While opinions differ about who built it, nearly every theory agrees on one point. Whoever designed the system intended to make access as difficult as possible. At that stage, the mystery becomes larger than buried treasure alone. What exactly was important enough to justify such extraordinary engineering? If the goal had simply been storing gold, far easier methods would have existed. Instead, every layer appears surrounded by hazards, unstable ground, flooding, and possible structural barriers, as though the entire system was designed to discourage anyone from going farther. Rick has often expressed that thought in simple words. If someone went to this much effort to hide it, whatever is inside must have mattered. Marty approaches the mystery from a more practical perspective, but even he agrees that engineering on this scale would be difficult to justify for something ordinary. With mounting evidence suggesting the presence of a sealed chamber, the team faced its next major decision. Should they begin excavating immediately, or should they verify every detail first? This time, Rick and Marty chose patience over speed. Rather than launching a direct dig, they planned a carefully controlled investigation. Several ultra-thin camera probes would be lowered between 60 and 100 feet, each entering from different borehole locations. Examining the same target from multiple directions would allow engineers to build a detailed three-dimensional model of the underground space instead of relying on a single viewpoint. These probes would carry far more than cameras. They would also include pressure sensors, moisture detectors, and precision scanning equipment capable of transmitting real-time information back to the surface. If unexpected water movement appeared, or the surrounding structure showed signs of instability, the strategy could be adjusted immediately. This careful process reflects Marty's philosophy throughout the project. First understand what's there, then decide how to reach it. That lesson was learned through decades of experience. Several earlier excavations rushed promising discoveries, only to see shafts collapse or flood before meaningful evidence could be recovered. This time, the team hopes to avoid repeating those mistakes. The phased approach offers another important advantage as well, keeping costs under control. While a full excavation may require $20 to $30 million. When engineers compared readings from multiple boreholes, they noticed that several anomalies didn't simply continue downward. Instead, some of the strongest signals appeared to spread sideways, suggesting a broader underground layout. And if you don't want to miss what happens next, be sure to subscribe, because this mystery is far from over, and the next breakthrough could change everything we think we know about Oak Island.